Hey, hey, hey. Yeah, sure, why not?
Oh, is that not what I was
No, 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 it's fine. I don't care.
Okay.
Now you can interview me on your questions.
Okay, sure. Oh, this is okay. We'll flip
No, no,
it
that's
over.
perfect.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my little talk show over here. I have multiple guests coming on. Bonnie will be my first, and then Vienna afterwards. Bonnie, it's so great to have you here. For those of you that don't know out there, Bonnie has been an amazing figure in the youth movement for environmentalism for how long?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess unaware of it when I was a teenager, but more aware of it probably from about 2018.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty-
In young people terms, quite a while.
Yeah.
So, Bonnie, your first sort of entry point into sort of global conversation in climate storytelling was through your book.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Go Gently?
Yeah, sure. So I wrote a book that came out in 2022 called Go Gently, Actionable Steps to Nurture Yourself and the Planet. And I, for so much of my life and for many people in my generations and either side have obviously focused most of our attention of storytelling or sharing information through social media, which is obviously an incredible tool. But I was really driven to, for my own personal practice, to really sit and concentrate on writing a book, but also just to make something that felt more lasting, and why I chose the medium of a book, because it felt like a tangible piece of resource that felt as tangible as you'd hope action truly feels, rather than a kind of fleeting moment online. So I decided to write a book that brought together all the different things that I had been doing in my own personal life, mostly in the kind of environment of my home, in terms of helping me to connect to these wider issues. So when we're told to take certain actions, sort of why that connects to the larger issues at large. Like, why does composting your food scraps connect to the issues we have in, methane gas release into our atmosphere? So it was a very, very practical book. I'm a very practical kind of person, and I like really tangible things. So it's kind of like a textbook, recipe, cookbook kind of vibe of a book.
That's great. And a lot of people read it.
Yeah, I hope so.
So a lot of people have read her book. So you're being humble about it. Your book was very, very popular. Popular with young people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of the platform I know that I had to speak on, or people my age. And I was always. I always think that people want to be empowered to the small choices they're making, like, do make a difference, and they do help us to connect with each other as well as the issue at large.
Amazing. Can I go back up to question 2? Well, I guess we talked about that, but yeah, I guess let's talk about it a little bit more. Specifically, you made a book that young people gravitated towards, and young people apparently don't read. So, how did you do that?
My book also. Well, I wrote my book also during right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So I think that also gave me a great container to concentrate and write my book. I think it was also an era of time where people were really returning to slower forms of mediums
Right.
as we had more time, or we suddenly realized that there were more isolated moments of connection that we had to find. And I think
So you brought reading back to young people.
I did not. That's definitely not what I did. That would be an amazing thing, but no. Sadly, that was not me. But I just think in all forms of longer storytelling, in the idea of there's the assumption made that people want this quick, momentary, 90-second, 30-second storytelling.
Right.
When in fact, I would pretty much assume everyone here also would like to believe that our desire and our ability to concentrate is longer than that, and to really connect with people and their story is, people want longer forms of storytelling.
And the book became like a little bit of a social media movement too, which created the organization out of that. But
Yeah.
So you wake up one morning and you have this book that's out there, and then suddenly you see all these people that are posting like, you got to read this book. Like, this book's changed my life, all this kind of stuff, right? And you're having your like inconvenient truth moment, right?
Yeah.
So do you immediately say, okay, I'm turning this into an organization, or was that always the plan to go from the book to something bigger than that?
I guess, yeah, natural evolution to have a book and then want to start for the book to be the beginning of that journey. Like, that was always my intention, and I even say that in the conclusion of the book. And I think particularly in the book, I talk about this idea that the book really focuses on the home environment and what you can be doing. And the idea of the social movement that came up at the end of it and at the end of the book is like our action can only begin at home. It really can't end at home. If we're not taking these actions out onto the street and into broader communities, then it really isn't like enough, basically. So the social media platform looks at connecting people and helping to connect people, and just making things more. You know, I'm a very like visual person, so creating and using social media as a way to use video and images to maybe better explain some chunkier, like heavy text moments that are in the book.
So, first of all, how old were you when you started writing?
Well, I guess my storytelling I guess writing, not till later. I mean, probably when I was at college, I went to film school and studied writing and directing.
Yep.
And so I guess
we're going to talk about that later.
Only
I'll get to that for sure.
Like then, I guess. And I think for me, I've always, while I love to read, I've never been someone that's like an excellent reader. And I always used to think like, oh, I could never be a writer. And I never in a million years would ever have thought I would be an author of a book. And I kind of like that it found me accidentally in the kind of medium chose.
So can you tell us how that happened? So first of all, was this was pre-pandemic, like right before, or?
So the concept of the book came like in 2019, pre-pandemic. And then I was like pitching to publishing companies at the beginning of the pandemic.
But what what I want to know is like, when you came up with the concept.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, how did you come up with the concept and the name, which is so amazing? And did the name came up, I'm guessing, before the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was the process of going out and saying, this is the book that I want to write, you know, and then going and writing it, and then it becomes this big book?
I feel like all my ideas come through an accumulation of thought. So it like kind of slowly came to me, and then I think it all just like gelled together the minute I thought of the title. Suddenly I was like, oh, okay, now I see what the angle of this book is.
Okay.
And I think before I never really thought it could be a book, but suddenly the title of the book and also the chapter titles, which all have go in the title.
Right.
So, you know, go learn, go make, go beyond, things like that. So the minute I understood the structure and the title, then that instilled the confidence in me to believe that I could sort of fill in the gaps and fit and actually write it as a book.
And obviously a great pitch. You sold us on it in like 60 seconds? So what does Go Gently mean to you personally?
Yeah, I guess the idea in just the words together, like go, obviously it has that real urgency to it, but gently to me is the idea that like if we don't do it gently, it won't be sustainable to ourselves and to the planet. So this idea that we can burn out, or we can, you know, burn our planet out really if we don't do it in a considered way that requires real empathy and care and love for ourselves, our community, and our planet. So it's kind of a way of being, a kind of like a sort of like, a way of being, essentially, was the idea behind Go Gently.
And that's interesting and kind of follows the ethos of the organization, our organization, forever. We're almost 33, 34 years old. And in terms of, it's Go Gently. It's not go and make everybody feel bad about themselves and, you know, and go and tell everybody that there's no point in trying because the world sucks anyways. Like, it's go thoughtfully and gently to take care of our planet. Was this something when you were growing up? Is this something that your parents taught you? Was this something that you grew up around to, you know, because obviously a lot of people in your generation are a little bit more like, let's storm the castle with it, and your view is much more inspiring.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely something that was instilled in me from a child. My parents are they're very resourceful, they're creative, they would always think to make something first or fix something that we had before buying something new or assuming that it was like, you know, done with. There was always this idea that we gave energy and thought and gravitas to everything that was in our home that, you know, had powerful energy to it, and really had and took more, you know, responsibility over where things came from. My parents are jewelry designers, so they, you know, they hold, you know, metal in their hand that can have its own story and can be recycled and remade and have history to it. So, and they're very good at their craft. So I've always been someone who has grown up in an environment that like really honing in your skill is something to do, which is very much how I've like let into my skill as a storyteller. Like that is my thing that I love to do. So yeah, it was very much instilled in from my parents. And whilst I grew up in the heart of London in a very urban area, I also spent a lot of time on the south coast of England. And what really brought me into the climate movement was a love and care for coastal communities and the ocean. And that was really my space and place that I've loved that I wanted to protect.
So let's take this now from the book to the movement. You tell us a little bit about your organization, and then I want to talk about how YouTube became a big part of it afterwards.
Yeah, so I guess when I wrote the book, I was like, I should probably get the handle of Go Gently on social media platforms. And I already, before the book was published, to actively, I guess, help its publication date, started to kind of share the kind of things that would be in the book, to tease that out.
On your YouTube channel.
And then I also had, a YouTube channel where I was, again, leaning into this longer form content where you'd have more like 20 minutes to sit with some of these ideas and concepts and make them very, as the book is, led through what I've experienced in a more kind of like diary style way of storytelling. So we had the YouTube and the Instagram and really tried to create as much content. And we're, 2+ years later, and I'm still creating content on that platform, every week.
That's great. And you have a lot of subscribers and a lot of people that learn from your video every week.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Young, old. And so your actual organization itself, can you tell us a little bit about, who you work with and, what your goals with Go Gently as an organization movement?
Yeah, I think my goal this year, essentially, I think we're all calling for more, in-person events. We're all sat here today, something brought us here. And I feel like we all really want to sit with people and have genuine, real conversations that are, again, less fleeting than moments online that can be sometimes misconstrued and misunderstood. So the way that we're taking Go Gently is in more in-person events. And obviously just really trying to focus on the LA area and maybe, as one travels, try and connect with other people in other areas. So as the book is very practical, most of our events will kind of really look at maybe learning a skill within that event or having something that you actually physically make and take home. I think I'm a very tangible person and tangible learner, and I think we can learn a lot through sort of doing and making. So it'll be a mixture of community events, more like craft and skill sharing events. But it's really just the beginning, and that's just been my sort of pivot for the year, is to focus on events.
Okay, so you're a parent.
Yes.
Of 1, 2 kids.
1.
And how old?
He is 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
So I guess here's my follow-up question, not to put you on the spot.
Okay.
But I'm going to put you on the spot, and then we'll talk about the TV stuff after. Is there going to be another Go Gently book that is about being a green mom? And
good
sustainable
question. Definitely one I've thought
tips.
of.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd only be true to myself and the motherhood journey if I waited a few years before knowing if there's a story there. I think.
But you're thinking.
I mean, from the minute one is pregnant, through birth, through all the stages, there's something to talk about.
Right.
So it would definitely be interesting. I feel like, again, as I say, most of my ideas come through a cumulative thought. So if enough things accumulate and I feel like there's a structure or a kind of angle, then I would write the story, but only if that presents itself.
Have you brought any of that into your YouTube yet?
Not really. So we took a pause on the YouTube when we made our TV show.
Right.
So maybe that's why I'll return to YouTube with a parent angle.
Don't you want to do a really annoying parent show that the parents are we watch my daughter. I'm sorry, guys. I have a 2-year-old daughter. She watches this thing, Miss Rachel, all the time. I'm sure you know about it. This is an educational thing, but I'm just imagining Bonnie doing her own version of Miss Rachel, but it's just all about sustainable, stuff for toddlers.
I think it's on the flip side of the Go Gently child parent book, or you could write a book for kids that was actually
I love that.
A storybook rather than
beautiful.
Me connecting with parents giving.
That's great.
So yeah, I think there's 2 ways.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll figure out. I'll reserve you for birthday parties in a couple years.
In a couple years.
All right, let's talk about the TV show. So you are working with one of our board members, Patagonia, on a new TV show. Is it called Go Gently TV? Is that right?
No,
Or-
it'll be something like, we don't know. It'd be something like Go Gently Exploring Our Magical Planet.
Got it.
Something that kind of vibe.
And today we're here to get your project to the Wright distributor and
Thanks,
network.
Yes.
So let's talk about the show. And
Yeah,
we have a
sure.
video too?
We don't have a video. We have
Okay.
some stills. I
Oh, we
think.
have stills. Okay. Can we
but-
throw some stills? Oh, that's a cue later on, but we'll throw stills now.
Okay.
Yeah, let's throw stills, and why don't you talk to us about talk about the show?
Yeah, sure. So, as he said, my co-host in the show is Patty Gonia, an incredible drag queen that does a lot of work around representation in outdoor spaces that are obviously very kind of old school and male dominated. So, really looks at bringing queer folks into these outdoor spaces and making them feel safe and celebrated. And so the two of us basically take a road trip from Los Angeles to Portland, meeting different people that are working in very small, local, scaled projects around the climate. So here, this is a small seaweed farm in Oregon. And then just before, the first still you saw was a great organization here in LA called USAL that do amazing events all across the city. From group rock climbing to skill sharing. This is up in Bend, Oregon, with snowshoeing with two guys who have an organization called Latina Outdoors, I think it was called. Yeah, and so bringing in Latinx folks into outdoor spaces, kids, families. This is us tracking, learning how to sort of track animals with an organization called Queer Nature. So it's a vast show that basically looks at, this is a great drag show we have at the end. So yeah, a show that really celebrates the small wins that people are having in their communities, making people as an audience member feel like, oh, maybe someone's doing that in my local neighborhood too. Yeah. And just fun road trip moments of us, setting up tents in the middle of the night, kayaking, getting lost.
Guys, there's 6 episodes. Each episode is 40 to 50 minutes long. This is the format, guys. And Bonnie's taking meetings.
Yeah.
So let us know afterwards, and we can set up a pitch for you guys. But what's the after season 1? Do you guys have a plan for what season 2 is going to look like?
Well, the idea with any season is it'll be just another road trip. So whether you keep that within the US or North America, you could take it to Europe, really anywhere from A
Go
to
back
B.
to your hometown.
Go back to my roots. And,
That's right.
Do London to Edinburgh.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is you are also, along with everything else, you are also, as you mentioned, a filmmaker, a writer and a director. So aside from the million things that you're doing, more busy than I am, do you have any new projects that you're working on that are more in the film or television space on the sort of creative storytelling side?
Yeah, there's always different projects. Some feel like they've been projects for years, but yeah, I obviously started in genre-wise. I entered this film industry in very much a big kind of franchise movie that was real fantasy story, and that's always been a real love of mine genre-wise, from fantasy to sci-fi to horror. And I've always been really interested in how I could bring the sort of climate story into those very, very popular genres. And I so believe in the power to really change people's minds in that kind of malleable space that we can be in the movie theater. So I've been working on some projects that, basically explore. One is a horror movie about this kind of trash-like monster, and then another is actually potentially going to be a novel, a YA novel that is essentially like a sci-fi story.
Great.
So yeah, kind of using and playing with a new genre for me from a storyteller's perspective.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good tease for tomorrow, guys. We have Chills for Change with Eli Roth and Issa Lopez. So if you guys want to join us for that. But yeah, any final words here before you leave the stage and Vienne comes on?
Oh no. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Where can everybody see all of your stuff?
Okay. Well, there is GoGently.earth as a website, or GoGently.earth as a handle on Instagram and things like that. And then I also share a lot on my own personal Instagram, which is This Is Be Right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome.